Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Frontal. Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, the religion of peace strikes again. In the aftermath of the latest terrorist attack by radical Muslim extremists, the mainstream media jumps to the defense of Islam and warns viewers that the deadly explosion that killed 20-plus people in Manchester is likely to inflame anti-Islamic sentiment. Meanwhile, the London police launches a free speech crackdown and tells the public not to speak out against terrorism. All that, plus look who just got press credentials to the White House. Read 'em and weep, snowflakes. Infowars is in the house. That's coming up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
The reason Infowars Life has 5-star ratings on major third-party sites is because I want products I'm going to use for my family. I take this, my family takes this, and then it funds the operation with the most hardcore, truthful information you're going to find anywhere. So what you find in our news is the same thing you find in our products at InfowarsLife.com.
If I ever forget to take them, like I have a noticeable difference. I don't feel good. The nascent iodine is one of the ones that was life-changing for me.
Yeah, I actually have just run out of my super female. I had a few bottles at my house, and I've been taking it again, hitting the gym once again. Very exciting, feeling great, looking good. So, and I know my hair is luxurious once again. So obviously the super female is amazing. I love it.
Nascent iodine is essential. Survival Shield X2. If there's one product that I would say is life-changing that I would suggest, it's Nascent iodine Survival Shield X2. It's got a 5-star rating.
It's a win-win. InfowarsLife.com.
Welcome to this live edition of the Infowars Nightly News. Tonight we're going to take a look at the insane political correctness. I would call it suicidal political correctness, the aftermath of the bombing in Manchester. As reported on Infowars, CNN analyst is now saying the Manchester attack could be a right-wing false flag. Remember when they mocked us for even using that term? Although it goes back quite some time and easily go back many different instances throughout our history. We see that, but the BBC analyst says that people need to get used to these attacks as well. So CNN is saying, hey, I think it's the right-wingers doing a false flag. Got to look at that as a possibility. And the BBC says, again, we keep hearing this, get used to it. They're here, they're going to stay, just get used to it. They say less than 24 hours removed from the latest horrific ISIS-inspired terrorist attack in the UK, a talking head on CNN programming has suggested that the bombing could actually be a right-wing false flag in order to frame Islamicists, because, you know, they're not really a problem, right? It's not. So we have to frame them if this is really going to be the case. Meanwhile, BBC anchor Katie Kay told viewers that Europeans must get used to the attacks because we are never going to be able to totally wipe this out, essentially echoing what the Islamic mayor of London has said in the past. Also on Infowars.com, we look at the London police launching a free speech crackdown after this Manchester attack. We had Katie Hopkins, who reports for the Daily Mail with other outlets. She tweeted out, she said, Western men. These are your wives, your daughters, your sons. Stand up, demand action. Do not carry on as normal. Cowed. To which you see then, as you take the screenshot that we've got here in the article, the Metropolitan Police contacted her and said, we can confirm that a complaint has been received and the allegation will be reviewed and assessed by specialist officers. It was one Twitter user who complained about her tweet to the police, claiming that it incited racial hatred, despite she never mentioning anything about race, not about Islam even, which, of course, Islam is not a race. And remember, as I just pointed out, it was the London mayor, Sadiq Khan, who said Londoners just need to get used to this. This is the type of thing that you're going to have in a big city. It's part of living in a big city. But even more revealing, as we point out in this article, is the fact that the loudspeaker announcement telling the concert goers there is no problem here, everything is fine, even after the nail bomb blast. Isn't that a picture of what is truly going on here? Even as people are dying, bleeding out on the floor, the announcement comes on telling people, it's all fine. It's all right. It's okay. Don't worry about this. They said there's no need to bunch up and run. They're trying to keep people from panicking, certainly. But sometimes, and certainly we don't need to panic and trample other people, but we need to understand what this threat is and do something about it. Meanwhile, they're saying to us, this is what the press is saying to us, take your time. There's no problem here. Thank you for coming. Have a good time tonight. Thank you for watching our news, that type of thing. That's what we're hearing from the mainstream media. Everything is fine. Just exit the building. Exit the building. Meanwhile, ABC says the Manchester attack is likely to inflame anti-Islamic sentiment. So you don't want to panic. You don't want to say anything that's going to get anybody upset if they're Muslims. On Tuesday morning, Good Morning America co-host George Stephanopoulos and ABC Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz stated that the attack in Manchester could lead to anti-Muslim backlash. We don't want that to happen. Don't get upset about this. Stay calm. Just go about your daily business. Don't worry about this. Yes, a lot of people, a lot of children, mostly children, were blown to bits by a suicidal man inspired by Islamic terrorists. But don't pay any attention to that. Don't panic. Don't panic. Don't do anything. Just stay calm. Chive on. This is also likely to inflame anti-Islamic sentiment across Britain, across Europe, said George Stephanopoulos as he wrung his hands. And then Raddatz said, it sure could, George. You know, Manchester itself is a very multicultural city. There's a large Muslim population there with many there for generations. So a headscarf attracts little attention there. But, you know, this could change. It could get really bad. Let's take a look at the difference in how President Trump reacted to this attack in Manchester and how former President Obama reacted when there was a mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. And, of course, when we look at this, the thing that will stick out, we're going to play a couple of clips here for you, but the thing that sticks out is the difference in what they focus on and who they blame and where they see the problem lying. Of course, we have Trump, as you'll hear. He has sympathy for the victims, and, of course, they both had sympathy for the victims. But he directly attacks Islamic terror. He doesn't make any exception for it, and he puts his finger right at the source of it. Here's what President Trump said in regards to the terror attack in Manchester.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life. I won't call them monsters because they would like that term. They would think that's a great name. I will call them from now on losers because that's what they are. They're losers. And we'll have more of them. But they're losers. Just remember that.
Yes, they are losers, but they are also monsters. And we all know that they're monsters. I'm going to give you a preview of what they're working on that goes beyond blowing up children at concerts, goes beyond running down pedestrians in shopping malls. And when we take a look at this, and we have to first be able to identify the problem and not backtrack. And, of course, that's what President Obama did. President Obama was very reluctant to rush to judgment. He didn't know what could be behind this. He had absolutely no idea, as you'll hear. Here's President Obama.
We've reached no definitive judgment on the precise motivations of the killer. The FBI is appropriately investigating this as an act of terrorism, and I've directed that we must spare no effort to determine what, if any, inspiration or association this killer may have had with terrorist groups. What is clear is that he was a person filled with hatred.
We have no idea where that hatred came from. We have no idea what motivated him, except that they tell us all the time, don't they? They're coming after the Crusaders. They see these little girls as Crusaders that are somehow a threat to them. They have to wipe out these infidels. But he did know what to blame. He didn't know who to blame or where that came from, but he did know what to blame. He blamed guns. He further in the speech, he talked about gun laws. He said, this is a reminder of just how easy it is for someone to get their hands on a weapon. So presumably what we need to see in the United Kingdom is some sort of bomb control, because we just saw yesterday just how easy it was for somebody to get their hands on a suicide bomb. So we need to have bomb control. No, we don't really need bomb control. We don't really need gun control. What we need is border control. Once the people come in, once we allow terrorists to come in, once we don't vet people who come in, then we're going to have this problem. And of course, the problem is even greater in the second generation. And this is what we see with this particular individual. He was a second generation, recruited into terrorism. This is something that I've mentioned many times before. We're going to see more of this. We cannot vet the people who are coming in from the countries that we are currently fighting, that we are at war with. Now, maybe we shouldn't be at war with them, but if we are at war with them, wouldn't you think that they're dangerous enough that we need to vet them or stop them coming into this country? You would think so, wouldn't you? But that's not what we're going to do. And so even though we might have a few come in that are not vetted, in the second generation, they're going to grow up in a self-ghettoized culture. They want to isolate from the culture at large. They're going to be very resentful of being in that ghetto, the second generation will, and they will be radicalized by the same schools that are turning our own children into children who hate their own culture, who hate their own country. How much more so somebody who comes here from another country and grows up in a ghetto, even though they may be in the ghetto because of their parents? John Baum breaks down how the police and the media collude with terrorists.
No.
Let's face it, they're here, they are psychotic, and they aren't going anywhere. Unfortunately, for the sheep living in their plastic bubble of learned helplessness, that has to be the sobering truth taken from the Ariana Grande Manchester bombing, claiming the lives of 22 innocents, injuring 60 plus. But the Mockingbird media refuses to change their narrative. Rather, they would have the sheep get used to their own destruction from within.
Europe is getting used to attacks like this, Mika. We have to, because we are never going to be able to totally wipe this out. As ISIS gets squeezed in Syria and Iraq, we're going to see more of these kinds of attacks taking place in Europe, and Europe is starting to get used to that.
Senior U.S. intelligence official tells NBC News there has been an explosion. We'll get the latest on that in a minute. We begin, however, with the shocking news in Washington tonight. The Washington Post reports that President Trump asked two top U.S. intelligence officials to publicly deny any evidence of collusion with the Russians during the 2016 presidential election.
It must also be noted that in recent months in Europe there have been a number of false flag plots where right-wing extremists have tried to frame Islamists for terrorism.
By giving the impression that Islam and the West are incompatible, you're playing into the hands of the extremists.
Oh, Brigitte, he's saying either you change your views or you'll be attacked. You will be less safe.
Well, we are less safe. We were welcoming the Muslims, and then they attacked us on 9/11. At 9/11, we had open arms. As a matter of fact, President Bush immediately after the attack said Islam is a religion of peace, and immediately went to the nearest mosque to tell Muslims, don't worry, we love you. We know this has nothing to do with you. And since then, we have had terrorist attack after terrorist attack. This sensitivity stuff is baloney. The mayor of London, who is actually a Muslim sympathizer, who actually represented Imam al-Qaradawi, one of the most notorious radical terrorist imams, who's actually banned from Britain right now, the same mayor representing him, he has no business lecturing Americans about who we get in and who we get out.
I mean, you may as well just put up the white flag of surrender to say, we're just going to normalize terrorism. And what makes me really annoyed is it's the very same political class who, whenever anybody says, look, surely we should security check people, we should make sure that newcomers into our country agree with our values, gets condemned. And what I'd like to see from the French Prime Minister and from Sadiq Khan, before they say anything, is an apology for what their policies and their ideas have done to all of us.
The Metro Police are actually investigating those who spoke out against the gradually developing narrative of the Manchester attack. Kit Daniels writes, police have already opened one investigation into Mail Online columnist Katie Hopkins after she said Western men need to demand action in response to the terrorist nail bomb attack which targeted children leaving an Ariana Grande concert. One Twitter user, dbev007, complained about her tweet to police, claiming it incited racial hatred, despite her never mentioning anything about race or even Islam, which isn't even a race to begin with. In response, police confirmed that the allegation will be reviewed and assessed by specialist officers. Libyan Manchester native 22-year-old Salman Abedi has been identified as the bomber. Predictably, ISIS has haphazardly accepted responsibility for the attack. Bleeding heart liberals, you have to ask yourself, at what cost will you continue to defend the welcome mat you have extended to a culture hell-bent on your demise through jihad and cultural integration? The high cost of the lives of your own children and your heritage?
Right, it's Great Britain.
This we don't care. It's not so Great Britain.
John Bound for Infowars.com.
And as you heard in that report, Nigel Farage was speaking out as to what was happening. He had more to say, actually, and we have an article at Infowars.com. Farage said about Manchester, the UK is no longer safer than France or Belgium. And will the second terror attack in 2 months shake Brits from complacency? This is what he had to say. He went on to predict that London is an obvious mark for jihadists. He said, however, the targeting of teenage girls in a secondary city will be a very big shock for the UK. And then he points out, I remember about 5 years ago, I said we had a fifth column living inside our own nation. Now we see this is happening. And of course, ISIS was very proud of that, saying that this is only the beginning, as they put up a tweet afterwards saying, in the name of Allah, the merciful. Isn't that merciful to blow up young girls? This is only the beginning. They said the lions of the Islamic State are beginning to attack all the crusaders, all those young girls, those crusaders attending the Ariana Grande concert. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That is where they are. Now, meanwhile, we see that yesterday, before this happened, the UK Independent pointed out that ISIS is testing chemical weapons on human guinea pigs. These are documents that were intercepted as American forces, or Iraqi special forces rather, recaptured Mosul from ISIS fighters. What they are doing is using prisoners to test ways that they can poison food. And one of the ideal lethal poisons that they described in their documents is something called thallium sulfate, a colorless, tasteless salt that can be dissolved in water. And sufferers began to have fever, nausea, and swelling of the stomach and brain before dying in agony 10 days later. Those are the true monsters that we see. Now, if you don't think that this is going to be coming to your country if we don't control the borders, take a look at what is happening in the Philippines. It's absolutely amazing. We have a crisis in the Philippines. The president there, Duterte, has declared martial law in Mindanao in face of the ISIS-linked onslaught. They've actually blocked roads. They have buildings that are burning. They've got an ISIS flag flying from a hospital. This is looking exactly like Syria. This is the war that the globalists want to bring to our country. That's why they start the war in the other countries, the regime change, so they can bring the refugees in and have exactly what we're seeing in the Philippines.
Infowars has partnered with Defender Body Armor to bring you a new state-of-the-art line of advanced, highly tested body armor from InfoWarsStore.com. Defender Body Armor is certified to protect against all handgun rounds and even armor-piercing FN 5.7 pistol rounds. The secret to Defender Body Armor is its proprietary processing technology that disperses more kinetic energy at a rate higher than any other traditional body armor, using one of the strongest synthetic materials ever created, called ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene. Defender Armor is also super compact and lightweight. There's a reason the Department of Defense chose Defender to manufacture their new line of advanced lightweight armor. It works. Defender body armor is made right here in America and has received the highest level ballistic resistance certification from an authorized NIJ ballistic laboratory. Defender body armor is now available through InfoWarsStore.com, so you can defend yourself, your family, and finance the info war against the globalists all at the same time. A total 360 win.
You provided Alex with the caveman.
Well, so we've been formulating this stuff for a while, and we've been getting these different flavors, and I don't know about this one, and so I've been taking that stuff, and I'm an old man. I'm 42. I work out 5 times a week, if not more.
I hear you're okay in jiu-jitsu. That's what I hear.
No, I'm not. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. But the point is that I have a lot of aches and shoulders, and there's weird joint stuff that I've had issues with for years. And this bone broth, the caveman bone broth, along with our joint formula, has just worked magic for me. And that's just, that's just from my personal experience. I think they're great products, and I think if anybody else has those issues, that you should definitely, you owe it to yourself to check it out. If I'm wrong, then hey man, write me a mean letter. But let me tell you, they work for me. And so,
yeah, they work for me too. We were talking about this earlier. Du and I play basketball, and I'm just now, like for the first time in my life, I'm 27 now. After I play basketball, my knees are barking. Like but the bone broth and the joint formula, like you just said, you combine those two. I felt the difference immediately. I felt it immediately.
Yeah, and it actually tastes good. Like, I'm really picky, and I will drink it. It tastes good to me. I love chocolate, so I really like the flavor of the caveman. So, I mean, if the bone broth if the bone broth is really that gross, I mean, I would never have known because it tastes really good. And my favorite is the Super Female Vitality. So ladies, get yourself some Super Female Vitality if you haven't already, because it just gets me going. I mean, I'll take a whole bunch of that stuff before I go out and do
get it for your wife then too, or girlfriend.
Right? I go and take a bunch of it before I go do Man on the Street, and I just start running, zipping around, running right into the action. No fear, nothing. So,
well, that's a big primary part about fighting the globalists, is making sure that we stay healthy and stay clear-eyed and stay honest and stay humble. I hope that we do that here at Infowars. We got a lot going on, and we're in the middle of the fight, so we really appreciate it when anybody supports us, either by purchasing our products, or you can even go onto our store and donate. We're doing this by the skin of our teeth. I know it looks like we're in a $1 billion studio, but Alex has never taken 1 cent of borrowed money at all whatsoever. This is all money that's come from you, the listeners. So you have literally built this place, built this place with your compassion, and built this place with the support that you've sent us. So from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it, because I know we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't have a voice if it wasn't for you. So once again, we got to thank the listeners for their steadfastness in supporting us. And even when we make mistakes, and even when we're not right, and even when we might go a little bit crazy, you guys stick with us, and I appreciate that.
Today we had the deep state, the dark intelligence state, continue its efforts at regime change. Here at home, we had John Brennan, former CIA director, going before Congress today, testifying. And just to put this in context, we've been talking about the political correctness, the suicidal political correctness that we're seeing in the wake of the bombing in Manchester. And we had CIA Director John Brennan back in September, just so that you remember, said that words or comments that taint a religion as being the source of the problem are detrimental to our interests in dealing with the Muslim world. And this, of course, as you can see there on that screen, this is a guy who was the CIA chief of station in Saudi Arabia. So clearly, when you're there in Saudi Arabia, you certainly understand that Islam is a religion of peace and tolerance, right? We talked about that a great deal yesterday on the radio program, all the different crimes and punishments that we see in Saudi Arabia, and just how similar they are to what ISIS does. But it's okay when our allies chop off heads and limbs, but it's not okay when ISIS does it, because, they're working with us, with the CIA. Now, today, what he said was, of course, feeding this Russian Democrat conspiracy theory that we hear. He says that he believes that Russia is trying to actively exploit animosity in Washington. So that wouldn't be coming from the Democrats. The Democrats are not trying to create division and animosity in Washington. No, that is simply the Russians who are doing that on Capitol Hill. So today he goes before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, and he says several things to them. As the Washington Post says, these are 5 moments that show that Trump isn't about to get any help from the intelligence community. We've known that for over a year, haven't we? These people openly campaigned against Donald Trump, and they have been slandering him ever since, coming up with things that are not even really rising to the level of allegations. They haven't alleged anything specifically. They haven't shown us any proof. What they have done is a lot of innuendo, and I'll show you this. Washington Post thinks this is very damning, but I don't know. I think it's very damning to the other side. Number one, they said it should be clear to everyone that Russia is brazenly interfered in the 2016 presidential election process. That's what one of the first things that John Brennan testified today. So I'd say, again, show me the evidence instead of repeating vague innuendos. And he goes on to number 2. He says, my radar goes up when I see certain things that I know what the Russians are trying to do, and I don't know whether or not the targets of their efforts are as mindful of Russian intentions as they need to be. Again, he's not accusing them of doing anything. He's saying, well, you know, I think the Russians are trying to rig things, and maybe you don't really understand what they're trying to do. So he says, don't jump to conclusions about Islam, he said before, but do jump to conclusions about people who are Trump appointees or President Trump as well. Then number 3, he says these contacts that might have been totally innocent and benign, as well as those that might have succumbed somehow to those Russian efforts. So again, he throws this out there and says with innuendo, I think that there's something here. I think there are things that send up my radar signals. I get this twitchy feeling about this, and yet it may be totally innocent and benign. Well, which is it? You've been investigating this for over a year. Maybe you could come to a conclusion. Maybe you could offer some specific charges even, and then began to try to prove those charges. No, he just continues to throw out the innuendo. Number 4, I believe they tried to damage and bloody her before the election, he said of his patron, Hillary Clinton. And again, we know that John Brennan was very closely tied to Hillary Clinton. We'll talk about that just in a moment. Finally, the 5th one, he says, any political shaping of the intelligence community would not be appropriate. I have made my position clear on that to this administration, and I intend to maintain that position. Okay, that came from the Director of National Intelligence, Daniel Coates. Really, I mean, do you think that the intelligence community is politicized? I mean, it's only a problem if somebody alleges that Donald Trump says, hey, you guys have been investigating this for a while, right? You haven't found anything, right? Could you tell people that you haven't found anything? You're getting political here. Now, see, the witch hunt is political. Now, if we look at the Hill, they say the ex-CIA head intelligence shows contacts between the Russians and the Trump team. They say that John Brennan today said that it left him concerned about the possibility of collusion. Do you see this passive aggressiveness that's going on here? It's always right up to the point, but never quite making a charge. And then he goes on to say, I don't do evidence, I don't do intelligence when they tried to pin him down. See, this is what I'm saying. Trey Gowdy was tired of all the innuendo and is like, at least give us some allegations. To which Brennan said, I don't do evidence. I do intelligence. I do intelligence. No, what he does is he does espionage. He does the overthrow of governments. He does politics is what he does. He doesn't do evidence. He does those things. He does espionage, overthrowing governments, and politics. And Trey Gowdy said, well, I appreciate that you don't do evidence, Director Brennan. Unfortunately, that's what I do. You and I both know what the word evidence means. We're not getting into whether or not you corroborated, you contradicted, you examined, or cross-examined. We're not getting into how you tested and probed the reliability of that evidence. It's really just a simple question. In other words, put up or shut up. You're playing this political game, and we understand precisely what you're doing, these slippery little snakes. And let's go back and take a look at who this guy really is. Let's go back to 2013, for example. At the time, we just had Michael Hastings, who had died in a very suspicious car crash. His motor was ejected down the road, and then the car turned over to the side. It burned up in flames as it slowly went into a tree. It really wasn't smashed up that much. And, of course, the gas tank in the back was uncompromised. So it looked like it had exploded as it was going on. A lot of people talked about that. He said he was being followed. He was concerned that they were going to try to take over his car. Well, in August 2013, we quoted a reporter at San Diego 6 News. Kimberly Dvorak said John Brennan was Hastings' next expose project. She said she received an email from the CIA acknowledging that Hastings was working on a CIA story that was centering on Brennan. Why would he be centering on Brennan? Well, because Brennan was behind the witch hunts of investigative journalists learning information from inside the Beltway sources, said WikiLeaks. They said there's a specific tasker from the White House to go after everyone printing materials negative to the Obama agenda. Even the FBI is shocked, according to the email that WikiLeaks published. Before being sworn in as CIA director in March, Brennan had been a counter-terrorism advisor for the Obama administration and helped to compile the kill lists, the assassination lists for the White House drone assassination program. Now, if we go to just about a month or so ago, we had Paul Watson reporting that the former CIA analyst, Larry C. Johnson, said that according to his sources, the Obama administration worked with the NSA, the CIA, and Britain's GCHQ to disseminate information about Donald Trump that was illegally obtained via surveillance before the election. Johnson joined the CIA in 1985 and was later promoted to become senior regional analyst for Central America before moving on to work at the State Department. And what he said was, I understand from very good friends that both James Clapper and John Brennan at CIA were intimately involved in trying to derail the candidacy of Donald Trump, that there was some collusion overseas with Britain's own GCHQ. See, that's where the collusion is. The people who tried to hack our election, the people who interfered with our election were, first of all, the DNC. Hillary Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the people that worked with her. They hacked the primary against Bernie Sanders. But as we always see, when somebody exposes their crime, they want to focus on who's this whistleblower? How did they get this information? And that's what we're looking at now. We're going to find out how we got that information. We've had the testimony of a UK ambassador saying that it wasn't a hack. It was information that was turned over to him, that he came to the United States, that he had this information turned over to him. We've had Julian Assange, who has told us the truth, unlike James Brennan and John Brennan and James Clapper, who have lied to us repeatedly. Julian Assange has told us the truth, and he has told us that it is no state actor that is involved in this. And then just so that you understand where we are, there was this interesting article that came out also last September where John Brennan, in a speech where he was talking, this was reported by CNN, he was saying that when he joined the CIA, they asked him, and there's going to be a lie detector test, had he ever done anything that would, had he ever worked with a group that was dedicated to overthrowing the government? And he said, well, I had voted for the Communist Party, and I really wasn't sure about that, so I fessed up to that. And he said, I wouldn't be here. That was disqualifying. See, it's not disqualifying to be a communist, to be somebody who wants to overthrow the government. Maybe that is something that they're looking for at the CIA, especially when it comes to overthrowing our own government. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the budget. We're also going to take a look at the efforts to lynch Sheriff David Clark.
Electrify your day with Secret 12. It's like lightning in a bottle. We all have days in which we just can't seem to perform at the level we'd like to. Infowars Live Secret 12 is designed to naturally energize your body and mind with 2 great tasting and super high quality forms of vitamin B12. Proper vitamin and nutrient intake is essential to keep your body functioning at optimum levels. The reality is, it's hard to take in the proper amount of vitamins we need each day with our modern diets. Secret 12 by Infowars Live is an easy way to naturally upgrade your vitamin B12 intake and support your body's natural systems. It pairs 2 forms of vitamin B12 into one explosive formula. Vitamin B12 supports healthy energy levels through red blood cell formation and aiding in the body's natural processes, but it also assists with many other functions of the body. Electrify your mind and body and take your health to the next level. Experience the power of Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we've brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out. We have the new product at InfoWarsLife.com, BioTrue Selenium.
We've had so many requests over the years for selenium, and just recently, we were able to source a certified organic, bioavailable selenium from mustard seed extract. When you take selenium in the body, it actually benefits the detoxification systems in your body. It helps balance the thyroid gland. It helps detoxify.
Selenium is another one of those absolute must-haves.
The highest concentration of selenium is in the thyroid gland, but it's actually used all over the body. As a matter of fact, there's 25 genes in the body that are directly dependent upon selenium. So it really is a all-around nutrient that everybody really needs.
I'm taking it now every day. This is so key. BioTrue Selenium is the product, the best selenium that we could bring you. We believe it's the best out there at a very, very low price. Exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Group, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make. We fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
CNN is doing their best to lynch Sheriff David Clark. They have made absurd charges to try to keep him from being put in a position with the Department of Homeland Security. Now, right now, he is Milwaukee County's sheriff. He has been an outspoken supporter of gun rights and other issues, a very frank individual in terms of law enforcement. We don't usually get people that are this plain spoken. But they're coming after him. The CNN grammar Nazis are coming after him, going after his thesis with trumped-up charges about plagiarism. It's amazing. You won't believe what they're saying about Sheriff Clark. And they're saying this, he said, and pushing back against them, he said, this is about weakening, like I said, the support that I have and that I have with President Trump and Secretary Kelly is to weaken their resolve to hang in there with me. Yeah, they don't want President Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kelly hanging in there with him. They want to lynch him. He says, will it be successful? He says it might, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. So what is the issue that they're saying here? Well, Sheriff Clark did a thesis. I think it was a master's degree that he did. And CNN reported this last weekend that there were dozens of passages from his, yes, it's a master's thesis that he did back in 2013, that he used direct lines from other sources and only credited them in the footnotes. He credited them. He said, I'm crediting these sources here, but he didn't put quote marks around it. Don't you just hate it when you got these grammar Nazis correcting you with your comments online? And here they are, even though he credited them in the footnotes, they say you didn't use quotation marks correctly, therefore you are a plagiarist. He denied the plagiarism allegations. He said the reporter who authored the report was a sleazebag with a political agenda. That's what I said. Sheriff Clark tells it like it is. He's very plain spoken. He could have said a lot more about that. I probably would have. Meanwhile, we have the White House Trade Guild is freaking out about Infowars. Yesterday, when I was doing the radio show, we had Dr. Jerome Corsi, who we have hired to be our Washington bureau chief. And he joined us saying, hey, I'm here in the press room. We're moving forward with our presence here in Washington, D.C. I've got a White House press credentials here. And the mainstream media freaked out about that. We got an article here from The Hill saying, Infowars claimed on Monday that it had been approved for White House press credentials. But it appears the conspiracy-driven website, founded by Alex Jones, received only a temporary one-day pass. No bias at all here from The Hill, right? Yeah, there you go. They're so objective and so unbiased. No, see, it's a real threat to them. The White House press corps operates like an old trade guild, and they're very, very jealous and resentful of anybody who would get into that, who would threaten their monopoly. See, they practice access journalism. They're very important because they're there in the White House, and so therefore, because they're in the White House, you should listen to what they have to say. They are authoritative. And, you know, just because we get into the White House, that doesn't mean that it is authoritative, but it means that you're going to get different questions. You're going to get a different analysis than you're going to get from the mainstream media. But they feel threatened by that free speech ability. Very threatened by it, as a matter of fact. I thought it was kind of interesting to see some of the tweets that some of the trolls put out here. People who are reporters, people who are part of this White House Press Guild monopoly. One of them was a guy named Trey Yingst, and I had to look him up. I didn't know who he was. He said, Infowars was given a day pass, White House credential, not a permanent press pass. High school students can apply for day passes. Well, here's the deal. As Dr. Corsi pointed out yesterday when we were talking, there's a process. The first part of the process is we had to hire somebody. Okay, that's the first. You have to get reporters that are there. Then they apply for day passes. Then they get weekly passes. Then after they've done that for 3 months, they can apply for a permanent pass. It is a process. And I would just point out to Trey Yingst that your presence there, Trey, means that having an audience is not a requirement, because I don't think you have an audience. You have zero presence here, but you seem to be very worried that somebody is going to threaten your presumed monopoly in terms of covering the White House, in terms of asking questions. There will be different questions. Dr. Corsi has done some very interesting analysis of what's really keeping Obamacare afloat. It is funded by theft, and they don't want to have these types of questions asked. Meanwhile, we see the White House budget has been released today, and going back just about 2 months ago, we saw CNN headlines say the Trump budget that they teased at that point bemoans the $20 trillion debt, but it does bupkis about it. And now that he has put something out that would do something about it, now they're screaming bloody murder that he is doing cuts. So first they criticize him because he's not doing enough to stop the deficit. And then when he says, well, here's where I'd like to cut, they scream bloody murder. The White House on Tuesday vigorously defended President Trump's $4.1 trillion budget proposal. They said the plan represents Trump's campaign promises that have been put on paper. They said, this is the House budget director, said there's not a single thing cut from Social Security or Medicare. Why? Because that's what he promised. They say, we look at spending differently. We're not going to measure compassion by the number of programs or people that are on them. And I hope that is, they keep that mindset when they start to look at Obamacare. If we get into the situation that we look at the number of people who have been given coverage by stealing money from other programs, stealing money from private investors and Freddie and Fannie, then we really are done. We need to have a different yardstick than the number of people who are on a program that is organized theft. But they say even before the documents released, Democrats were organizing against it, and that is precisely the situation. And understand that when they talk about cuts, that frequently what they're doing is talking about cuts that were less than the planned increase. Typically when you look at this, and typically when you look at people pushing back against proposed cuts, what they're saying is that instead of this program growing by $200 million, it's only going to grow by $100 million. And they see that as a $100 million cut. I see it as a $100 million increase. And so that's really what the problem is. And as Michael Snyder pointed out today, it's time to put the limited back in limited government. Let's abolish the EPA. That's a good place to start. And clearly, that is one of the places that Donald Trump has focused on. There are 66 programs that he would propose to eliminate in this budget. And many of those should be eliminated. The education department, for example, Nearly $5 billion is what he would eliminate. Why do we even have $5 billion? Let's eliminate the entire thing. That's just a small part of the Department of Education. The Department of Education did not exist before Jimmy Carter. And then when we had President Reagan, he campaigned on abolishing it. It was still a very small program, but he didn't do anything to stop it. As a matter of fact, he grew it to where it was several times the size that it was when he took office. That is the problem in Washington. On the other side, we see John McCain. He says that the budget deal is going to be dead on arrival. Why doesn't John McCain like it? Well, because he wants even more money for defense spending. The Democrats say there's too much money for defense spending. I agree with them, quite frankly. The increase is bigger than the budget, the entire defense budget of Russia. That's the increase that we have. But that's not big enough for warmonger John McCain. Dr. Strangelove himself. He said the president's $603 billion defense budget request is inadequate. We can't defend ourselves with that. No, we can defend ourselves with far less. What we cannot do is act as an empire and conduct 7, perhaps 8 different wars now as we look at the intrusions into Yemen. We cannot conduct all of these wars simultaneously and continuously on that kind of budget, but maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe we should not be an empire. Trump's budget is expected to be met with swift resistance from military hawks like McCain, who has suggested that not $603 billion, but $640 billion, and not a penny less for John McCain. And when you look at the different organizations that are on the budget, as Zero Hedge looks at it, most of them are getting a decline. The EPA getting the biggest decline, 31%. Education Department is down by 14%. Some of these are up, though. The Department of Homeland Security is up by 7%. The VA is up by 6%. The Defense Department is up by 5%, that type of thing, okay? But let's understand where this is. As Zero Hedge is looking at this, they said there's one big problem with the Trump budget. And that is that they are assuming that we're going to continue our recovery. We have a current expansion that began in June 2009, and it was a very weak expansion, but it has already lasted for 95 months. We have never seen a situation where we have gone on for a 10-year period. And that's the fundamental assumption. That's why it's not going to work, even if it wasn't dead on arrival. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Alex Jones here with a very important news update to anybody out there that wants to be prepared. But it goes beyond being prepared. Our bodies absolutely must have the good halogen iodine or we will die. And you look at all of the thyroid problems and all the people that don't have energy and that have all sorts of hormone problems. And from my research and a lot of just mainline research, it leads back to iodine over and over and over again. It's as important as vitamin C. If you don't get iodine, you die. But most people are just deficient, so they're low energy, they're sick. You got to have iodine in your body so that your body can produce the hormones you need. It is the base to so many things. And since I got into iodine 4 years ago, we've helped change the entire paradigm by developing and bringing to the public deep earth crystals from 7,000 to 12,000 feet of the purest iodine available. Other iodine comes from the ocean or from other byproducts of chemical facilities, and it's tainted. It's bound. It's not absorbable. I tried it. And I had incredible effects even with dirty iodine because the body needs it. When you don't have iodine, it absorbs the chlorine, the fluoride, and all these other bad halogens. Do yourself and your family a favor and check out the importance of iodine for yourself. I think you're going to be blown away. And whatever you do, support the broadcast and get a bottle of Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Also consult your physician because if you've been deficient in it or have other issues, it can have some dramatic effects. As for me and most folks I talk to, it's been a game changer in the positive column, but still consult your physician because iodine is no joke. It's a key building block of the body. And if you haven't had it for a long time and suddenly have it, some folks say they've experienced things like a detoxing effect and things like that. You've got to have vitamin C. You've got to have iodine to live. You got to have water to live. Iodine is key. You must have it, but consult your physician first before you get powerful Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2 at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll free. We can answer your questions, 888-253-3139.
Fox News retracted its statement last week about Seth Rich's murder. But then we had Kim.com enter yesterday in a very strong way. Today, he demurred a bit. Owen Schroyer looks at what we know at this moment.
Well, according to PolitiFact, you are a liar, liar, pants on fire if you are insinuating that Seth Rich might be the WikiLeaks leaker with the DNC emails. They say you are a liar, liar, pants on fire in this latest article. It says the baseless claim that slain DNC staffer Seth Rich gave emails to WikiLeaks. So we're going to show you how PolitiFact is actually a fraud on this story. It starts out by talking about the intelligence community concluding that Russia tampered with the election. Yes, these 17 intelligence entities say that it was Russia that was meddling with the election, even though they have said that they cannot prove that any votes were changed, even though they cannot prove that it was Russia that actually hacked into the DNC. They cannot prove any of that. We're just supposed to take them at their word like we do with every other thing. But it goes on, including stealing Democratic Party emails and giving them to WikiLeaks. That's right, PolitiFact is saying that that was Russia. Well, even if that was true, shouldn't we be thanking Russia? Shouldn't we be thanking Russia for exposing the corruption inside the Democratic Party? After all, Donna Brazile did leak questions to Hillary. That was true. She lost her job. And let's not forget, there was an email from John Podesta that said he'd be willing to make an example of a potential leaker, whether it be them or not. But let's go on. They say it's an unfounded conspiracy theory that Seth Rich may have been murdered because he gave the emails, the DNC emails, to WikiLeaks. But yet, they just ignore this when they say unfounded. They ignore the Clinton body count that's gone mainstream. They ignore Kim.com's statement. They ignore the former British ambassador Craig Murray, who said it was a handoff. They ignore the fact that they claim Seth Rich was robbed, even though nothing got robbed from him. And you have a full investigation going into Russia, yet they can't prove any evidence there. So what's the real conspiracy? That it was Russia that influenced the election, or that Seth Rich was the DNC email leaker to WikiLeaks? They go on. They admit Seth Rich worked on voter access projects for the DNC. Well, yeah, he wasn't just a staffer. He was very important as far as voter access projects were concerned. And they admit that the case remains unsolved. But somehow you're unfounded if you have a conspiracy theory about what happened to Seth Rich. WikiLeaks published tens of thousands of internal DNC emails several days after Rich died. WikiLeaks also offered a $20,000 reward for information about Rich's murder. Yet again, PolitiFact says that these are unfounded claims, even though they point this out in their own story. Amazing. Now, let's get to Rod Wheeler. A lot of strangeness here. Rod Wheeler, private eye, investigates into Seth Rich, says he finds something, then retracts his statement. It's a weird development with the parents. Of course, you have Donna Brazile, who was warning against a private eye investigation into Seth Rich. But then you have the Rich family that apparently sent a cease and desist letter to Rod Wheeler, the guy that they apparently hired themselves. But it's funny because Seth Rich's parents put a video out debunking the people saying that Seth Rich's parents are calling the conspiracy theories sociopaths and they want them to stop. Here's the video.
Hi, everyone. This is Joel. I'm Mary. And we're Seth's parents. We just wanted to say thank you for helping us. We're just so warmed that you would step forward and try to help us find the murderer of our son and try to find the two that killed him and make the world a safer place. Seth always believed in people helping each other and that the world would be a greater place if more people did, and we are just so happy. And from the bottom of our hearts, can't say thank you enough for helping us find who killed Seth. Thank you so much.
So it sounds to me like Seth Rich's parents are thanking people on the internet for investigating this because they're not getting the answers that they want from the DC police. But we'll get to that in a second. Now, they're going to say that Fox News has retracted this story, and it's true. Even Fox News, who went with this story, people such as Sean Hannity broke this story, and now they've retracted. You have to wonder why that is, even though Newt Gingrich came out very sternly saying that he believes Seth Rich was the leaker. So why did Fox News retract? But here's another interesting twist. Only the D.C. police are being allowed to investigate this right now. Everyone else, the FBI, the CIA, everybody else, they're busy investigating Russia, can't find anything. D.C. police are busy investigating Seth Rich. They won't even actually do the investigation. They didn't actually go to the bar and question people at the bar where Seth Rich was last seen before his murder. And you wonder, why is this going on? Maybe it's because Heather Podesta is on the D.C. Police Board. Let's see, Heather Podesta, John Podesta. Wow, I don't think that John Podesta has anything to hide here. It's not like John Podesta was exposed in the WikiLeaks emails. It's not like John Podesta has anything to lose with this election loss for Hillary Clinton being his fault, which he now apparently admits. But let's recall, this is what happens when the D.C. police isn't doing the investigation. You have to have private investigators, which are hired by Texas businessman Ed Butowski from Fox News. He has to finance this investigation because the D.C. police aren't doing it. The D.C. police are basically standing down. And then you have people on the internet who look for details. And that's why Seth Rich's parents were thanking people on the internet, not like the fake news is telling us. Now, Wheeler also said he believes the local police and the FBI are engaged in a cover-up. Again, we mentioned Heather Podesta. That might be the reason why. So, again, here's PolitiFact saying, so the allegation that Rich was the real DNC leaker and related insinuation that Rich was murdered because of it rests nearly entirely on claims from a single unnamed federal investigator with unspecified connection to the case. That is so wrong, it's not even funny. They are completely ignoring the case or the claim from Kim.com, who is saying that he's ready to cooperate with authorities. He's ready to turn over the evidence. So again, here is PolitiFact being politifraud and blatantly, well, lying by omission. And again, we have nothing on Russia. They've been investigating Russia for months. They've produced nothing. No hard evidence. Zero. They say, oh, they left a footprint on the computer. Yeah, that's a typical hacker technique to leave the fingerprint of somebody who it's not so that you don't get the blame. I'm sure the FBI is unaware of that tactic. So then they say no evidence has emerged that shows Rich was so disgruntled with the DNC that he would do this. Really, no evidence. Let's see, the DNC is actually being sued right now. There is an ongoing lawsuit, 45 different states. These are Bernie Sanders supporters who are suing the DNC because they believed that the DNC robbed the election from Bernie Sanders. And guess what? They're probably right. And guess what? Seth Rich was disgruntled because he's a true American that wanted to see an actual election take place, not the selection of Hillary Clinton. And when he saw the selection of Hillary Clinton, he was not happy, and that would be why I allege that he leaked the emails to WikiLeaks, not the Russians. But I'm unfounded, according to PolitiFact, which again, we are showing as politifraud. So they even admit the leaked emails were overall rather mild. Really? If they were mild, then how did they influence the election? If they were mild, then why did Donna Brazile get fired? No, they were hardcore. Okay? And that's why they're trying to make you forget about Seth Rich and blame the Russians as if the Russians were the bad guys when it's really inside the Democrat Party. It goes on, they didn't expose any conspiracies or illegal activity. Really? The emails didn't expose the illegal activity of Donna Brazile handing over questions. And who knows what else is in those emails, folks. We've read them. All of this together makes a pretty flimsy case, especially when compared to the broad consensus that Russia actors were the true culprit. So a flimsy case for Seth Rich with all the evidence, but a strong case for Russia with zero evidence. PolitiFact, you are politifraud.
Well, that's it for tonight's news. Don't forget, this weekend, we're going to have a big sale at InfoWarsStore.com, up to 65% off selected items for Memorial Day. That's it for tonight. Join us tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight.
And it's time for humanity to stand up in the InfoWar and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality Infowars Biome Defense Probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high quality known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, the religion of peace strikes again.